10 psychological rituals that will awaken your hidden power. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Have you ever met someone who isn't the richest, the most talented, or the most famous, yet their very presence feels magnetic, calm, clear, and grounded? That energy doesn't come from luck. It comes from inner work. Jung believed that true power isn't about controlling the outer world, but understanding the inner one. In this video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore 10 psychological rituals that awaken your hidden potential, not to make you better, but to make you truer. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on your own daily habits. Which of these practices could help you live with more presence, peace, and authenticity? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes one conscious shift within can quietly transform your entire world. 1. Self-observation instead of auto-reaction. Most people live their entire lives unconsciously, reacting rather than choosing. They are caught in a loop of automatic behaviors, repeating the same emotional responses again and again, without realizing that every reaction drains their power. Carl Jung taught that true awareness begins the moment you observe yourself before you react. That tiny pause between what happens and how you respond is where your freedom lives. It's not just a moment, it's a portal. Within that silence, you awaken the power to choose understanding over anger, calm over chaos, and consciousness over compulsion. This is the first step of spiritual awakening, learning to witness rather than to react. When you start observing your emotions instead of being ruled by them, you begin to see their hidden patterns. You notice how quickly irritation rises, how easily you feel defensive, how your body tightens when you feel misunderstood. But instead of identifying with those emotions, you become the watcher, the one who sees without judging. That act alone shifts everything. Observation is not suppression. It's awareness infused with compassion. When you simply allow your emotions to exist without resistance, they reveal their roots. Anger often hides pain. Fear often masks vulnerability. Sadness often signals a deeper truth you've been avoiding. Through gentle awareness, these emotions transform from enemies into teachers. Jung's great insight was that everything we refuse to see in ourselves becomes the unconscious force directing our lives. By observing our inner world, we bring light into those shadowed corners of the psyche. This is not easy. It demands courage, honesty, and patience. Yet each time you pause before reacting, you reclaim your energy from the unconscious. You stop feeding the patterns that keep you stuck. That pause, that single breath before you speak or act, is the moment your soul takes back control from the ego. And in that instant, you are no longer a prisoner of your emotions. You are their master. Self-observation is the daily ritual that strengthens spiritual wisdom. It is a practice of remembering that you are not your anger, not your fear, not your insecurity. You are the awareness behind them. This awareness doesn't seek to destroy emotions, but to understand them. When someone provokes you, the old self wants to strike back, to prove its worth. But the awakened self sees the situation for what it is, a mirror reflecting an unhealed wound. Instead of reacting, you breathe, you observe, you choose peace. Slowly, you realize that no one can truly disturb your inner harmony unless you give them permission. Each moment of awareness is an act of freedom. Every time you pause and witness, rather than react, you expand your consciousness. Life becomes less about controlling external events and more about mastering your inner energy. This is where true spirituality begins, not in escaping the world, but in engaging with it consciously. To observe yourself without judgment is to walk the path of healing. It is to transform reaction into wisdom, emotion into energy, and confusion into clarity. That is how spiritual awakening unfolds quietly, moment by moment, within the sacred pause where consciousness is born. Have you ever truly practiced self-observation instead of reacting on autopilot? If you have, share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone's spiritual awakening. If not, comment, "I will begin observing myself," and take the first step toward unlocking your hidden power through spiritual wisdom. 2. Balancing, doing, and being. Society worships action, achievement, and productivity. But the truth is, your soul doesn't evolve through constant doing, it awakens through stillness. You've been taught that slowing down means falling behind. Yet in reality, silence is where your deepest form of spirituality and spiritual development begins. When you pause the endless motion and simply allow yourself to be, you reconnect with your intuition, that quiet inner compass that speaks softly beneath the noise of the world. The more you chase external validation, the further you drift from the sacred language of your soul. But when you surrender to stillness, your energy recalibrates, your emotions settle, and clarity rises like dawn after a long storm. In this sacred stillness, you begin to see that busyness is not strength, it's distraction. Constant movement clouds your intuition and scatters your energy, while silence gathers it. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." The moment you stop trying to control everything and simply observe, your awareness expands. You start to feel the subtle rhythm of your being, the divine pulse beneath your thoughts. It's in this quiet awareness that real transformation happens, not through struggle, but through surrender. The soul doesn't need more noise. It needs your attention. And when you give it that attention, your inner world begins to harmonize, guiding your outer life with grace and precision. Silence is not emptiness, it's presence. It's the space where your consciousness and your soul meet and communicate. When you create moments of stillness, whether through mindful breathing, meditation, or sitting quietly in nature, you begin to bridge the gap between doing and being. You realize that doing without being is mechanical, but being without doing is divine alignment. From this balance, your actions become more intentional, flowing naturally from inner peace rather than external pressure. Stillness doesn't take you away from life, it roots you deeper in it. And in that depth, you discover your hidden power, the quiet, unwavering strength that doesn't shout but radiates. You no longer act out of fear or hurry. You move from calm awareness. This is the secret of all spiritual masters. They know that power is not in force, but in flow. The more you align with your inner silence, the more you realize that life is not something to be chased, it's something to be attuned to. Every moment of pause becomes an act of alignment. Every breath a bridge between heaven and earth, between your human self and your higher consciousness. In learning to balance doing and being, you begin to live from the center of your soul, not the edge of your anxiety. You act, but your action is conscious. You rest, but your rest is purposeful. This is the art of spiritual development, where stillness becomes your teacher, silence becomes your healer, and being becomes your truest form of power. 3. Cultivating inner honesty. Stillness is not merely the absence of noise, it is the mirror of your soul, where everything you've been avoiding rises to the surface. Your fears, your insecurities, your hidden wounds. It is in those quiet spaces that the shadows you've long suppressed begin to speak. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." His words remind us that true growth doesn't come from pretending to be positive all the time, but from courageously facing the parts of ourselves we've kept buried. To cultivate inner honesty is to stand unflinchingly before your reflection and admit what you truly feel: jealousy, anger, pain, desire, and to do so without judgment. This is where healing begins, because the moment you acknowledge your truth, you stop fighting against yourself. The mind loves illusions. It loves to protect you with excuses, stories, and masks that help you fit into a world that demands perfection. But the cost of denial is authenticity. The cost of suppression is peace. Every time you ignore what you feel, your body remembers, your heart tightens, your energy dims. Honesty is not an act of weakness. It is the foundation of all spiritual wisdom. When you dare to see yourself clearly, you step out of the fog of self-deception and into the light of awareness. You no longer fear your darkness, because you understand that your darkness holds your greatest potential. Every shadow is a lesson disguised as pain, waiting for your acceptance to transform it into power. Jealousy reveals your unfulfilled longing. Fear shows you where faith is missing. Pain teaches you how deeply you can love. This is the alchemy of consciousness, turning the raw, heavy emotions of your humanity into the gold of understanding. Jung believed that wholeness is achieved not by rejecting parts of ourselves, but by integrating them. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel, and you cannot transform what you will not face. To look within is to uncover the architecture of your psyche, to meet the hidden child, the wounded lover, the silent warrior, and to embrace them all as sacred. This is not a journey of perfection, but of honesty, where every truth accepted becomes another step toward freedom. As you practice this ritual of self-honesty, you begin to see that the shadow is not your enemy, but your teacher. It reveals the blind spots in your mind and the hidden motives in your heart. It shows you why you react, why you fear, why you cling. And with every layer you uncover, you reclaim a fragment of your power. In that reclamation lies transformation. Inner honesty turns your pain into wisdom, your resistance into surrender, and your fear into fuel. When you can sit in silence with your truth and not flinch, when you can face your inner storms and still choose peace, you awaken something ancient and indestructible within you. That is the essence of Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom, the understanding that to awaken your hidden power, you must first walk through your own darkness and make it conscious. For only then can the light truly belong to you. If this message resonated with you, declare it boldly in the comments. I choose inner honesty and spiritual growth. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights inspired by Carl Jung's timeless teachings. 4. Protecting your energetic boundaries. Not every heaviness you carry belongs to you. Much of what weighs on your spirit may be the energy of others' unspoken fears, expectations, and emotional residue that have quietly settled within your field. Carl Jung warned that when you become entangled in the energy of others, your own soul begins to dim. Protecting your energy does not mean building walls or isolating yourself from life. It means learning to stay centered in your truth, even as the world swirls around you. It means realizing that not everything you feel is yours to heal, and not every storm requires your participation. When you protect your energetic boundaries, you preserve your inner light so you can give from fullness, not depletion. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding with awareness, grace, and power. Your energy is sacred. It is the essence of your vitality, intuition, and connection to the divine. Think of it as a flame, steady, radiant, and alive. Every time you allow negativity, guilt, or the emotions of others to infiltrate your space, that flame flickers. Jung believed that the soul loses its clarity when it identifies with everything around it. Protecting your energy, therefore, is an act of spiritual awakening. It is the process of reclaiming your essence from the noise of the collective. It's about remembering that your empathy is a gift, not a burden, and that you can be compassionate without being consumed. By observing what drains you and what nourishes you, you begin to master the subtle art of energetic discernment. You start to notice how certain people, conversations, or environments either raise your vibration or pull it down. And with each realization, you step deeper into spiritual wisdom, choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. Boundaries are not barriers. They are the architecture of your inner sanctuary. They allow your spirit to breathe freely and your intuition to flourish. Protecting your energy might mean saying no to what feels misaligned, spending more time in solitude, or grounding yourself before and after social interactions. These are not acts of selfishness. They are acts of reverence for your soul. Jung's teachings remind us that individuation, the journey of becoming your truest self, requires protecting your psychic integrity. You cannot awaken to your highest potential if you are constantly entangled in the energetic debris of others. Your task is to stay rooted in your center while the world moves around you, to let your light expand without letting it scatter. When you learn to protect your energy, you become a calm presence in a chaotic world. You stop absorbing emotions that aren't yours and start radiating a frequency that heals without effort. Others will feel your strength, not because you are hard to reach, but because your spirit is whole. This is the heart of spirituality, to live open yet grounded, compassionate yet self-contained, loving yet sovereign. Protecting your energy is not withdrawal from life. It is participation from a place of power. It is the quiet confidence that allows you to serve, love, and create without losing yourself in the process. Through spiritual awakening, you realize that the more you honor your boundaries, the brighter your light becomes, and that light, once preserved, becomes the force that transforms everything it touches. 5. Practicing psychological discipline. Discipline is not about control. It is about inner harmony and alignment between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. When these three forces move together, you stop fighting yourself and start flowing with life. Discipline is the art of transforming chaos into clarity, resistance into rhythm, and fear into focus. It's not a harsh restriction. but rather a sacred structure that allows your energy to move freely and purposefully. Through small, consistent actions, waking up when you said you would, keeping your word, finishing what you start, you build an unshakable trust within yourself. Every time you honor a promise you've made to your own soul, you strengthen the bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, which is the essence of spiritual development. As Carl Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Discipline is what makes that illumination possible. When you live without discipline, your mind becomes a battlefield, filled with unfinished intentions and scattered emotions. But once you learn to guide your energy with precision, your thoughts gain clarity, your emotions find calm, and your actions carry power. You begin to notice that discipline doesn't confine you, it liberates you. It allows you to direct your energy toward creation rather than conflict. You stop seeking instant pleasure and begin to cultivate lasting peace. Every act of self-discipline becomes a quiet declaration that you are no longer at the mercy of external chaos, but guided by internal order. This is how discipline becomes a form of spirituality, a devotion to the highest part of yourself. The more you practice, the more subtle shifts you'll notice. Confusion turns into focus. Hesitation becomes confidence, and procrastination transforms into purpose. You stop reacting to life and start responding with awareness. Emotional storms lose their grip on you because you've learned to pause, breathe, and observe instead of getting lost in them. Discipline teaches you to harness emotion instead of being ruled by it, to turn impulse into insight and desire into direction. It refines your consciousness like fire purifying gold, burning away what's false and revealing what's real. Through discipline, your mind stops being a restless wanderer and becomes a devoted servant to your higher calling. True freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from doing what aligns with your soul, even when it's difficult. Each time you choose consistency over comfort, honesty over avoidance, and purpose over distraction, you awaken a deeper layer of strength. Discipline is how the ordinary becomes sacred, how a simple daily choice turns into spiritual evolution. It transforms repetition into ritual, effort into embodiment, and willpower into wisdom. The more you align your mind, heart, and actions, the more you experience inner peace, the quiet power that allows your consciousness to rise above fear. This is the hidden power within you, not to control, but to align, not to suppress, but to transcend. Through discipline, spirituality becomes practical, and spiritual development becomes your way of living. If this message resonates with you, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights on spiritual awakening and self-mastery. Comment below, I choose discipline over distraction, and let's grow stronger together on this journey of inner power. 6. Acceptance of paradox. Real spiritual wisdom is born when you dare to embrace paradox, the union of light and darkness, of power and fragility, of love and fear. Carl Jung once said, "Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life." What he meant is that true understanding never comes from choosing one side of your nature while rejecting the other, but from learning to integrate both. When you deny your anger to appear peaceful, or suppress your sorrow to look strong, you split yourself in two. But when you begin to honor all parts of yourself, the calm, and the chaos, the confidence and the insecure, you start to heal the silent war inside your soul. In doing so, you begin to feel the harmony that arises not from control, but from acceptance. You see, life itself is made of contradictions. There is no sunrise without night, no courage without fear, no transformation without pain. When you reject darkness, you also reject half of your strength, because even the shadow serves a sacred purpose. Jung believed that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So, when you dare to look into your fears without shame, you don't become weaker, you become whole. The more you allow both joy and sorrow to shape you, the more you begin to understand that every emotion is a thread in the tapestry of your soul. To live with spiritual wisdom means to walk gently between opposites, to cry and still be grateful, to fall and still rise, to doubt and still have faith. Wholeness is not about purity or perfection. It's about integration. Every time you allow your heart to break open, you make room for deeper light to enter. Every time you accept your contradictions, your energy becomes more aligned, balanced, and powerful. That is where your hidden strength lies, not in being one thing, but in being everything you truly are. 7. Soul work in the ordinary. The sacred hides in the rhythm of your daily life in brewing tea, walking, writing, listening. When you begin to see through the eyes of spirituality, you realize that spiritual awakening is not about reaching for something far beyond you, but about descending fully into the present moment. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This truth reminds you that your hidden power does not awaken in rare moments of enlightenment, but in your willingness to meet the ordinary with divine attention. When you pour your tea slowly, feel its warmth, and watch the steam rise, you are practicing devotion without even knowing it. When you walk and feel the earth beneath your feet, each step becomes a silent prayer of connection. When you write, you are conversing with the unseen part of your soul. When you listen, you become the space where love itself can be heard. These simple moments, once overlooked, are in fact sacred rituals, bridges between your humanity and your divinity. Greatness is not born from extraordinary moments. It is born from doing small things with great love. As you cultivate mindful presence, life stops feeling like a race and begins to unfold as a living meditation. The act of washing your hands becomes a renewal of energy. Cooking becomes a ceremony of gratitude, and even breathing becomes an affirmation that you are one with the universe. The divine is not waiting in the distant heavens. It is breathing through every heartbeat, watching through your eyes, and moving through your touch. Every small act done with awareness transforms the ordinary into the miraculous. That is the essence of soul work, to meet each moment as sacred, to live as though the divine were present in every grain of sand, every drop of water, every second of silence. When you live this way, life itself becomes your temple. Each movement, each gesture, each word becomes a prayer whispered into eternity. You no longer need to chase enlightenment, because awareness itself becomes your path. Every thought aligned with love purifies your energy. Every act performed consciously raises your vibration, and every moment of stillness reconnects you with your higher self. This is where true spiritual awakening begins, not in escape, but in embodiment. You start to realize that the universe was never apart from you. It was always speaking through you, waiting for you to listen. The magic of life is not hidden. It only reveals itself when you slow down enough to see. The sacred was never missing. It was only waiting for your eyes to open. And when they do, you understand that every breath, every sound, and every silence is a holy conversation between your soul and the divine. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on transforming everyday moments into sacred rituals of growth and awakening. 8. Listening to symbols and synchronicities. Life constantly communicates with you through dreams, symbols, and coincidences that seem too precise to be accidents. Carl Jung called this synchronicity a meaningful alignment between your inner and outer worlds. It is the universe's way of mirroring your state of consciousness and guiding your spiritual development. Every time a number repeats, a song plays at the right moment, or someone's words echo your private thoughts, it's as if life itself is speaking directly to your soul. These moments are not random. They are the whispers of divine order woven through ordinary events, nudging you toward deeper self-awareness. The symbols that appear in your path are not meant to confuse you, but to awaken you. They are a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious mind, inviting you to explore what lies beneath the surface of your everyday reality. When you start paying attention to these subtle signs, you awaken a new kind of perception, a language of the soul that cannot be translated through logic alone. Jung once said, "The dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul. Through that door, your unconscious reveals what your conscious mind cannot yet see. A recurring dream, an image that won't leave your thoughts, or even an unexpected encounter might hold clues to your growth. Symbols often reflect your emotional landscape. Water can represent cleansing or renewal. Mountains can symbolize challenges that strengthen your spirit, and flight may express a deep desire for freedom. When you learn to interpret these symbols, you are no longer blind to the dialogue between your psyche and the universe. You begin to live consciously, seeing spirituality not as something distant or abstract, but as an ever-present conversation between your soul and existence itself. Listening to symbols requires sensitivity and trust. You must resist the urge to dismiss coincidences as meaningless. Instead, pause and ask, what is this trying to tell me? Repetition is one of the universe's favorite teachers. When a symbol appears again and again, it is calling for your attention. These are the moments when the veil between the conscious and unconscious becomes thin. You feel guided, connected, and supported by an invisible intelligence that transcends logic. Each event becomes a mirror reflecting a hidden part of yourself that longs to be understood. This process is the essence of spiritual development. It transforms random experiences into sacred messages, pain into wisdom, and confusion into awareness. As you continue to honor these synchronicities, life begins to reveal its pattern. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, carries meaning. Jung taught, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The key is to listen deeply, not with your ears, but with your awareness. When you learn to decode life symbols, you no longer feel like a victim of circumstance, but a co-creator in a divine pattern of evolution. Spirituality becomes an art of perception, a practice of seeing how every detail, every coincidence, and every dream is part of your unfolding story. The more you pay attention, the more the universe speaks, and you realize that life has always been guiding you. It's just that now you finally understand its language. 9. Practicing conscious gratitude. Gratitude shifts your vibration from ego to soul. It is not about ignoring pain, but about honoring every part of your journey. When you practice conscious gratitude, you awaken what Carl Jung called the deeper dimension of the self, the part of you that sees meaning in both joy and sorrow. Gratitude is not the denial of darkness. It is the light that makes sense of it. It heals the nervous system, softens your perception, and reminds you that even the hardest moments carry hidden wisdom. Each thank you whisper is like striking a match in the dark, a small flame that gradually illuminates the vastness of your inner world. You begin to see that life was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be meaningful. And gratitude helps you remember that. When you thank life, not for what is comfortable, but for what is real, you shift from resistance to acceptance. This simple act opens your heart and calms your mind, aligning your energy with peace instead of struggle. Gratitude turns chaos into clarity because it rewires the way you see yourself and the world. It transforms every wound into a teacher, every loss into a lesson, every delay into divine timing. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And gratitude is the daily ritual that gently guides you toward that becoming. When you appreciate even the challenges, you reclaim your power from the external world and return it to your soul, where real transformation happens. True gratitude is psychological alchemy. It dissolves the boundaries between pain and growth, between what you hoped for and what you received. It allows you to see that everything has served your awakening in one way or another. Gratitude is the art of saying, "Thank you for shaping me," even when life has not gone according to your plans. The more you embody this awareness, the more your energy expands beyond fear and enters harmony with the universe. It is not an act of forced positivity, but a deep recognition that your life is unfolding with purpose. Every breath becomes sacred, every experience becomes a teacher, and every thank you becomes a prayer that lifts you closer to your soul. Through the eyes of gratitude, existence stops being random. It becomes a dialogue between your spirit and the infinite. To affirm your awareness of life's blessings and your readiness to rise in higher consciousness, declare it with gratitude. Comment below. I am consciously grateful to anchor this vibration of appreciation within you and inspire others to walk the same path of spiritual awakening. 10. Reconnection with nature. Nature mirrors the hidden architecture of your soul, calm, balanced, and whole. When you walk among trees or stand before a vast ocean, something ancient inside you begins to stir, as if the earth itself is reminding you of who you truly are. Carl Jung believed that nature was not just scenery, but a living symbol of the self, the totality of your being, where your conscious and unconscious meet. In nature's silence, your mind softens, your breath deepens, and your fragmented thoughts begin to align. You feel the pulse of life moving through everything, the trees breathing with you, the wind carrying away your heaviness, the sunlight returning warmth to places inside you that had long gone cold. In spirituality, Reconnecting with nature is not about escape. It's about remembrance. It's about remembering that you are not separate from life, but a part of its eternal rhythm. When you walk barefoot on the ground, you are touching the same earth that holds the memory of every living being. The river that flows teaches you trust. It never doubts its direction. The trees teach patience, silently growing toward the light without competition. The mountain teaches you stillness, reminding you that true strength does not need to move to prove its power. Every element of nature carries wisdom that words cannot express. And when you learn to listen, that wisdom begins to shape your inner world. Jung often spoke about the soul's longing for harmony, and nature offers this lesson effortlessly. The forest never rushes, yet everything within it thrives in divine timing. The rain falls without hesitation, cleansing what must be renewed. The soil receives decay and turns it into nourishment. When you allow yourself to be present in these cycles, you begin to see that your own healing follows the same pattern. Pain breaks you open. Time softens the edges. Renewal follows naturally, just as spring follows winter. This is the quiet miracle of spiritual awakening, to understand that nature's rhythm is your rhythm, and that every season of your life serves a sacred purpose. The modern world, however, makes forgetting easy. Surrounded by noise, artificial light, and endless distractions, the human psyche drifts away from its natural roots. Yet the soul aches for stillness, for simplicity, for the sound of the wind instead of the hum of machines. When you step into nature, you return to your original home, the one that exists beyond identity, beyond judgment, beyond striving. You are no longer the observer of life. You become life itself. In that sacred union, humility replaces pride, presence replaces anxiety, and gratitude replaces desire. The forest becomes your church, the sky your cathedral, and every breath a silent prayer. As you remember your place in this great living system, peace emerges naturally. You begin to sense that everything is connected, that every leaf and wave and breath participates in the same dance of existence. The more you align with this truth, the more you dissolve the illusion of separation that keeps humanity divided from the soul of the world. To reconnect with nature is to reconnect with your own divine essence, to rediscover that spirituality is not found in escaping the earth, but in embracing it completely. When you remember that you are nature, the boundaries between you and the universe fade, and what remains is wholeness, the quiet, steady knowing that you have always belonged. In the end, Carl Jung reminded us that true power doesn't come from the outer world. It is born from self-awareness, reflection, and daily inner work. These 10 psychological rituals are not just habits. They are doorways to awakening the hidden energy within you, transforming ordinary moments into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. When you practice them with intention, your life begins to shift from confusion to clarity, from fear to inner strength. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos that guide you toward deeper spirituality and self-realization, what the spiritually awake perceive in reality that others never notice. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung. Most people walk through life seeing only what their senses allow. But the spiritually awake see reality through a different lens, one shaped by awareness, intuition, and energetic perception. They notice the silent language of the universe, the synchronicities, the emotional undercurrents in others, and the subtle guidance of the unseen world. In this video on spiritual wisdom, we'll uncover what the awakened perceive that others overlook, and how you too can begin to notice the deeper truth hidden beneath ordinary reality. As you listen, reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever sensed something others couldn't explain? Share your story in the comments. Your insight might be the spark that awakens someone else. 1. Direct perception beyond the ego's filter. Spiritually awake people perceive reality without the distortions of the ego, without the endless chatter that divides, labels, and interprets. They don't escape this world or seek another dimension, they awaken to this one. They see not through the mind, but through presence. When most people look at a tree, they immediately translate it into a concept, a tree, a category, a memory. But the awakened don't stop at the word. They experience the living pulse within it, the silent consciousness expressing itself through form. They see its aliveness, its isness, the subtle vibration of being that words can never contain. What others call mundane, they experience as sacred because they have learned to meet life directly rather than through the filters of thought. This direct perception comes when the veil of mental commentary is lifted. The ego always wants to describe, define, compare, or control. But those who have undergone true spiritual awakening no longer obey that inner narrator. They see that life doesn't need interpretation to be meaningful. It is meaning itself. They realize that the mind's labels are not truth, but symbols, and that reality only reveals its depth when the observer becomes still. This stillness is not laziness or apathy. It is awareness unclouded by judgment. When the mind quiets, the world begins to speak in a language beyond words. The movement of wind, the shimmer of light, the still gaze of another person, all become part of the same vast consciousness observing itself. In this clarity, separation dissolves. The spiritually awake no longer live as isolated individuals struggling to survive in a hostile universe. They experience themselves as participants in a living whole. They see the unity behind opposites, beauty and decay, success and failure, joy and sorrow, because they recognize these are only different expressions of the same eternal rhythm. What the ego calls tragedy, awareness sees as transformation. What the ego calls loss, awareness experiences as release. In this perception, life is no longer something happening to them, but through them. They become witnesses rather than victims, creators rather than reactors. Carl Jung hinted at this truth when he said that enlightenment is not imagining figures of light, but making the darkness conscious. The spiritually awake do not deny the shadows, they embrace them. They understand that what they resist persists, and what they bring awareness to transforms. By looking deeply into their own inner darkness, they reclaim their wholeness. And as their inner perception clears, so does their outer vision. They no longer project their wounds onto the world because they have seen that the outer world is only a mirror of the inner one. In this profound spirituality, awareness replaces interpretation. The spiritually awake perceive energy where others see matter, essence where others see surface. The sound of rain, the pulse of breath, the trembling leaf in the wind all reveal the same truth. Life is happening now. Nothing needs to be added or removed. They no longer chase meaning through desire or fear because they have realized that the present moment is already complete. This is the quiet revolution of spiritual awakening, the end of inner resistance and the birth of pure perception. It is not about seeing something new, but finally seeing what has always been here. Have you ever experienced a moment when reality felt clearer, like you were seeing beyond the surface of things? If so, share your experience in the comments below so others can learn from your insight. And if you haven't yet, simply comment, "I'm ready to see beyond the illusion," to begin awakening your true perception. 2. Breaking the trance of conceptual thinking. Most people live in a kind of trance, caught in a web of endless thoughts, labels, and ideas that replace the living experience of reality with mental symbols. They move through life not seeing, but thinking about seeing, not living, but narrating life in their heads. The spiritually awake have broken free from this trance. They perceive the world directly, without the filters of constant analysis. It's the difference between staring at a picture of the ocean and standing at the edge of it, feeling the salt wind on your face and the waves crash around your feet. When thought quiets, even for a moment, something deeper takes over presence. And this presence is not distant or abstract. It's the raw aliveness that reveals itself in moments of danger, love, or breathtaking beauty, when time stops and reality shines through unfiltered awareness. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." The spiritually awake understand this truth. They no longer confuse the map for the territory or the word for the experience. They see that language, thought, and memory are tools useful for survival, but poor substitutes for direct awareness. The moment you label a tree, you stop seeing it. The moment you judge an experience, you separate yourself from it. But when you step out of the endless commentary of the mind, the world reveals its quiet magnificence. The colors become richer, the air feels alive, and even silence hums with hidden meaning. Spirituality, in its purest form, is not about beliefs or doctrines. It's about perception. It's about returning to the simplicity of seeing, feeling, and being, without the need to define or control. The spiritually developed soul no longer sees life as a collection of objects, but as an interconnected field of energy and awareness. There is no separation between you and the reality you perceive. You are part of its rhythm, its vibration, its unfolding mystery. Every breath becomes a sacred exchange with the universe. Every sound a message from the deeper intelligence that animates existence itself. When you awaken from the hypnosis of conceptual thinking, you realize that thoughts are not reality. They are echoes of it. They can describe, but they cannot contain. In awakening, you stop being a spectator of life and become a participant in its sacred dance. You don't seek meaning. You live meaning. You don't chase love. You feel it pulsing in everything. True spirituality begins when you see beyond the veil of words and step into direct communion with what is. This is not an achievement, but a remembrance of the return to the natural state of presence that was always there before thought tried to explain it away. And in that clarity, you find that life was never hiding from you. It was only waiting for you to finally look. 3. the illusion of the separate self. Spiritually awakened individuals begin to pierce through what Carl Jung called the illusion of the separate self, recognizing that the ego, the inner voice constantly saying I, me, and mine, is not who they truly are. It's only a psychological construct, a mask created through conditioning and survival, an echo that mistakes itself for the source. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate," reminding us that most people are not living. They are being lived by their thoughts. Yet when one awakens, something extraordinary happens. The realization that the thinker is not the self, but that the true self is the silent awareness observing every thought that passes. In that moment, you discover that the mind's voice is not your identity, but a temporary storm in the vast sky of consciousness. As awareness deepens, you begin to feel the stillness between thoughts, the sacred pause before the mind names or judges reality. That stillness is not emptiness. It is aliveness itself. You begin to live from that space where nothing needs to be controlled or resisted, where peace exists, not because the world changes, but because you are no longer trapped in its noise. Spiritual wisdom reveals that when you stop identifying with the constant commentary of the mind, you awaken to a reality that feels both infinite and intimate. You start to see emotions and opinions as passing waves, and you, the observer, remain the ocean beneath them, untouched, eternal, and free. This understanding transforms how you perceive others. You realize that every human being is playing a role shaped by their own unconscious patterns, just as you once did. Compassion naturally replaces judgment because you see through the mask and recognize the same awareness behind every face. What once divided people's beliefs, fears, differences begins to dissolve in the light of that recognition. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the integration of the conscious and unconscious, the unmasking of the self. It is not about killing the ego, but understanding it as a servant, not a master. The spiritually awake no longer react from emotion or habit. They respond from stillness. Their calm presence, their clarity, their silence all speak louder than words. When you realize that you are not your thoughts, but the awareness behind them, life begins to flow with a quiet intelligence. The same energy that beats your heart and moves the stars begins to guide your actions effortlessly. You see beauty in ordinary moments, purpose in every difficulty, and connection in every encounter. As Lao Tzu said, knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. This is what the spiritually awake perceive in reality, that others never notice the sacred awareness that has always been watching, waiting, and witnessing through you. And when you see from that place, you understand nothing was ever missing because you were never separate. Comment below, I am one with all that is, if you've begun to see through the illusion of separation and feel the truth of unity within your soul. 4. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. Spiritually awake souls perceive a truth so profound that it dissolves every illusion of separation. They realize they are not existing inside the universe, but that the universe itself is breathing, expanding, and evolving within them. As Carl Jung once said, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. This awakening is not an abstract idea. It is a direct experience where the boundaries between the self and the cosmos disappear. You begin to feel that your consciousness is not something small contained within the brain or body. It is the infinite field in which stars, planets, and even time unfold. You are not the wave lost in the sea. You are the ocean taking the shape of a wave for a brief moment of expression. This is the essence of spirituality and true spiritual awakening. The remembrance that everything you seek outside already exists within the vast awareness that you are. As this realization deepens, the grip of the ego begins to fade. You no longer identify with the fleeting story of me and mine, for you see that all identities are temporary ripples on the surface of something eternal. The ego, which once whispered that you must prove, possess, and control, becomes silent in the face of the infinite presence that simply is. This presence, this awareness, is the real you, the one that existed before your name, before your fears, before the world told you who to be. When this truth settles into your being, peace flows effortlessly, for there is nothing left to defend and nothing left to chase. Jung described this journey as individuation, the process by which the conscious and the unconscious, the finite and the infinite, become one harmonious whole. To the spiritually awakened, life is no longer a collection of random events. It becomes a living mirror, reflecting the state of their inner world. Every experience, every relationship, and even every challenge is seen as a symbolic message from the universe, urging them to evolve in awareness. What once appeared as chaos now reveals hidden order. Synchronicities, those mysterious coincidences, begin to unfold like cosmic winks, reminding them that they are deeply aligned with something far greater than logic can comprehend. This is why the awakened do not seek to escape the world, but to see through it. They realize that the world is not happening to them. It is happening through them. When you live from this awareness, life transforms into an effortless dance. You no longer react to circumstances as though they hold power over you, for you understand that your inner vibration shapes your outer reality. The same intelligence that moves galaxies also beats within your heart, guiding every step you take. You begin to move through the world with quiet confidence, not because you know every answer, but because you sense the rhythm of something sacred pulsing beneath every moment. You become the calm in the storm, the still point in the turning world. In this state of spiritual wisdom, every breath becomes an act of creation, every thought a spark of cosmic intelligence, and every heartbeat a reminder that the universe is not separate from you. It is you. You stop trying to belong because you finally understand. You have always been the belonging itself. To awaken spiritually is to remember that the stars, the oceans, the mountains, and even the silence between heartbeats all exist within the same infinite consciousness that you call I. And in that realization, the boundaries between heaven and earth dissolve, leaving only the quiet truth that you were never just a part of the universe. You have always been its living soul. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom if this message resonates with your soul, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any upcoming insights about your spiritual awakening. Comment below. The universe lives within me. If you're ready to embody the truth that you are the source of creation itself. 5. Oneness and interconnection of all things. The spiritually awake perceive reality as a single, living field of energy in which all things are deeply intertwined. They no longer see clear boundaries between self and other, inside and outside, or life and death. Instead, they feel the silent pulse that connects everything, the unseen thread that links a falling leaf to the beating of their own heart. This awareness doesn't come through intellect, but through direct experience, through the quiet realization that everything arises and dissolves together in a seamless cosmic dance. When this understanding awakens within you, compassion ceases to be a choice. It becomes your natural state. You begin to understand that to harm another is to wound yourself, that every act of kindness ripples across the vast ocean of being and returns to you in unseen ways. As you grow in spirituality and spiritual development, the world begins to reveal itself not as a place of chaos, but as a precise symphony where every note plays in divine timing. You start to notice how the smallest events, the sound of rain, the laughter of a child, the flicker of a candle, are not separate from you, but reflections of the same sacred energy that animates your existence. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to sense that everything is happening through you. The separation between inner and outer fades, and you realize that the universe is not a stage you walk upon, but a living mirror reflecting your state of consciousness. From this perspective, fear and competition lose their meaning. You understand that life is not about control, but harmony, not about possession, but participation. When you breathe, you feel the breath of the universe moving through you. When you love, you feel the love of the cosmos flowing outward without limit. Even death, once a shadow of dread, becomes a gentle transformation, a return to the infinite cycle from which you came. You begin to see that the end and the beginning are one and the same, that energy never dies, it only changes form. This vision reshapes how you move through the world. You become less reactive and more aware, less attached to outcomes and more aligned with presence. You see that every person, even those who challenge you, is a mirror showing parts of your own soul that seek recognition and healing. You start to live with intention, to speak with clarity, and to act with reverence because you understand that every choice contributes to the vibration of the whole. You begin to sense the truth that Carl Jung hinted at. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The spiritually awake no longer live as victims of circumstance. They live as co-creators of reality. Everything becomes sacred when you awaken to this truth. The boundaries that once defined your identity dissolve into something greater and more luminous. You stop searching for meaning and start embodying it. The more you awaken, the more you realize that you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean aware of itself. This is the essence of spiritual development. To awaken from the illusion of separateness and to recognize that everything, from the smallest atom to the grandest star, is part of one infinite being eternally expressing itself through you. If you've made it this far, you already feel the deep connection that links all things. Comment below, "I am one with everything," to remind yourself that separation is just an illusion. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more wisdom like this. 6. Intelligence is embedded in the universe. They perceive reality as alive, infused with an invisible intelligence that breathes through every leaf, every gust of wind, and every heartbeat. To them, nature is not dumb matter. It is consciousness expressing itself in infinite forms. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And those who awaken spiritually understand that this becoming is guided by the same universal intelligence that grows a flower without instruction and orchestrates the stars without effort. They no longer see consciousness as something that only exists in the human brain, but as the very fabric of existence itself, the silent architect behind every process in the cosmos. The same energy that makes the heart beat and the lungs expand also spins galaxies into being. The body digests, breathes, and heals without your permission because something deeper is at work, an intelligence so vast that it transcends thought. When the spiritually awake observe this, they do not just see, they feel the rhythm of the universe pulsing through them. They understand that this force, called divine intelligence, universal mind, or sacred order, is the essence of all creation. The grass grows not because it tries, but because it aligns with the flow of life. The spiritually awake live the same way. They move with the current instead of fighting it. What others call coincidence, they recognize as synchronicity, a meaningful dialogue between the inner and outer worlds, proof that consciousness connects everything. They sense this intelligence not as an abstract idea, but as a living presence guiding them through intuition, signs, and stillness. It speaks in moments of silence, through dreams that reveal truth, and through the quiet voice of the heart that always knows before the mind does. Jung called this the collective unconscious, a shared ocean of intelligence where every soul is connected beneath the surface of individuality. To see reality this way is to live in harmony with it. The spiritually awake trust life's timing, knowing that the same wisdom that turns seasons and shapes destinies also orchestrates their path. They understand that intelligence is not something to acquire, but something to surrender to. It doesn't come from striving. It comes from awareness. The body knows how to heal. The heart knows how to forgive. And the soul knows how to return home when you stop interfering with its process. Every act of stillness, every conscious breath, becomes an act of communion with that intelligence. This is what spiritual wisdom reveals, that you are not separate from life, but a divine expression of it, an individual wave on an infinite ocean of awareness, rising and falling in perfect rhythm with the whole. 7. No one is truly in control. Life is living you. The feeling that you are a separate being steering the course of life is the greatest illusion of all. For in truth, life is not something you are living. Life is living you. Everything that arises within and around you, your actions, your thoughts, your impulses, emerges from a mysterious current that flows deeper than the ego's perception. You do not summon the next heartbeat or instruct your lungs to fill with air. Existence simply breathes through you. Like waves forming and dissolving upon the ocean, your decisions appear, peak, and vanish in the rhythm of something far greater. This is the essence of spirituality and true spiritual awakening. The realization that the I, who claims to control, is merely a witness to the movement of the infinite. The ego, though loud and persuasive, does not create it, only observes and claims credit afterward, like a commentator narrating a match that has already been played. The mind says, "I decided," when in reality, the decision was already unfolding from layers of instinct, conditioning, intuition, and consciousness beyond measure. The moment you see this clearly, an immense lightness fills your being. You stop forcing and start flowing. You stop chasing perfection and begin to recognize that every step, every choice, every so-called mistake is life expressing itself through your form. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In awakening, you do not become passive. You become aligned with this hidden intelligence that was moving you all along. You begin to notice how even ordinary acts happen before the ego intervenes. Your hand reaches for water before the thought arises. Your laughter bursts before you plan it. Your intuition speaks before logic drafts a sentence. Life does not ask your permission to unfold. It simply does. When you relax into this truth, anxiety and perfectionism lose their grip because the pressure to control every outcome dissolves. You cannot make a mistake when you realize you are not the isolated author of the story, but the pen through which the universe writes. The deeper your spiritual awareness grows, the more you see that resistance creates suffering, while surrender opens the path of effortless harmony. To live in this awareness is not to give up effort, but to give up illusion. You still move, create, and choose, but from presence, not panic. You act without clinging to results, because you trust that the same force that spins the planets and makes flowers bloom also guides your next breath. Like a river finding its way to the sea, your life moves with a wisdom that cannot be calculated, but can always be trusted. When you stop grasping for control, you do not lose power. You discover real power, the quiet intelligence that operates when the ego steps aside. And in that surrender, you awaken to the truth that has always been whispering beneath the noise. You were never the wave trying to master the ocean. You have always been the ocean itself, remembering its own depth through the motion of a single wave. Stay connected with our community of spiritual seekers by subscribing to Spiritual Wisdom. Here, we explore Carl Jung's timeless teachings and awaken to the truth that life is not something we control. It's something that flows through us. 8. Only the present moment is real. Time is not an external force that carries you forward, but a construct of the human mind, a veil that hides the truth that only this present moment is real. The spiritually awake understand that the past and the future are illusions born of thought. The past exists as memory, and the future exists as imagination, both appearing now within consciousness. In spiritual development, this realization is like stepping out of a fog into crystal clarity. You begin to see that life unfolds only in the present, and this awareness dissolves the tension that binds the mind to regret and anticipation. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." When you awaken inwardly, you no longer drift through life chasing what once was or fearing what might come. You live in the only place life ever truly exists at this moment. In this stillness, the noise of the mind begins to fade. The endless inner dialogue, the rehearsed worries, the self-criticism, all of it loses its grip. What emerges instead is awareness itself, pure, steady, luminous. You begin to experience the world as it is, not as you think it should be. The light, the sounds, the sensations all become vibrant and alive. Every breath becomes a prayer, every second a quiet miracle. This is spirituality in motion, not a concept or belief, but a lived experience. When awareness becomes your natural state, you realize that joy has never been lost. It was only buried beneath the clutter of thought. Problems still appear, but they no longer dominate your existence because you see through them. They are movements within consciousness, waves rising and falling in the vast ocean of now. The more you remain rooted in presence, the more peace becomes your foundation. Life stops feeling like a constant struggle for control, and instead becomes a dance, a rhythm, guided by something wiser than the mind. This is the essence of spiritual development, surrendering the need to manipulate reality and allowing it to express itself through you. In this surrender, suffering eases and clarity blossoms. You no longer look for meaning outside yourself, because you sense that the meaning is already here, pulsing within each breath and heartbeat. Life is not something to master, but to witness, to move with, to flow alongside. When you live this way, time loses its tyranny, and every moment becomes a doorway to freedom. Reality reveals itself not as something distant or mysterious, but as the living presence that has always been here, quiet, radiant, and infinitely alive. When you begin to see the world through awakened eyes, you realize that reality isn't something happening to you. It's something responding to you. The spiritually awake perceive meaning where others see coincidence, purpose where others see chaos, and light even in the darkest moments. Remember, awareness is the true miracle. It transforms how you live, love, and create. If this message resonates with you, please like this video, share it with someone who's ready to awaken, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming explorations into consciousness and the hidden truths of reality.